My cousins demanded free use of my Lakeshore cabin for their wellness retreats. When I refused, their partners forced entry and now they're facing charges. My grandparents hosted a Sunday cookout at their townhouse pool, the usual neighborhood thing with deviled eggs and the same old stories. It could have been fine, but the guest list included my two cousins, their partners, and their kids ages 8-12. My partner and I don't have kids and aren't big on forced family time, but Nana called my partner directly and said it wouldn't be family without you. We showed up anyway. It was the standard setup. About 20 people around the pool, an inflatable unicorn floating sideways, Grandpa blasting AM radio. My cousins and their partners were sipping from those huge insulated cups. Nana was keeping an eye on everything from the shallow end, and Grandpa was in the shade giving weather updates to nobody in particular. About 45 minutes in, two of the kids tried to push a neighbor into the pool after a countdown. She slipped and only half fell in, then dried off, said bye to Nana, and left. My cousins and partners laughed it off like it was nothing. The kids are decent enough, but they pick up on their parents' bad habits. 5 minutes later, 3 kids lined up behind me to do the same prank. I stepped aside just in time and they jumped into the deep end. Turns out 2 weren't great swimmers. The adults jumped in quick to pull them out, all coughing and upset. Then the blame started flying at me for endangering them by not letting them push me in, and for letting their parents' phones and a tablet sink. The kids were using them to film. One partner dove in to fish them out but came up empty and yelled at everyone for not helping. I stayed calm and said it's on parents to watch their own kids. Things got heated with more back and forth. We said bye to Nana and Grandpa and left. One partner tried to follow us and tripped over a deck chair, almost funny but not really. Relevant comments from Up. The kids didn't start the mess, the adults did. My cousins and partners always push things to the edge and act surprised when it goes wrong. I've never been tight with them. They're 7 and 9 years older and we don't have much in common. They see boundaries as being cheap. They've asked to borrow my truck, tools, cabin. I've said no every time. Update 3 weeks later, the group text that night turned into everyone piling on us. We blocked them. Nana and Grandpa, who were in the thread, called to apologize and asked us to come over the next morning. They'd called the cousins and partners, no kids, to set some rules. We got a short apology through Nana's phone. It sounded forced, like they argued over every word. I unblocked them thinking it was over. Hours later, one partner sent me an invoice for the 2 phones and tablet asking when I'd pay up. I said never, screenshotted it for my grandparents and told them we're going no contact with those 4. Grandpa, who's usually low-key, got mad. He said the grandkids can't come to the pool until the adults act like it, and the cabin's off limits. Then Grandpa mentioned what we'd kept under wraps. The cabin's actually mine. I bought it years ago so my grandparents could have a spot by the water they always wanted but couldn't afford. They use it, schedule weekends, host friends, that's the deal. We didn't tell the extended family to skip exactly this kind of drama, but now it was out. A few days later, both cousins and partners showed up at our condo unannounced to apologize. We weren't home. They called my work. I let it go to voicemail. Stayed no contact. Update 9 days later, Nana called, sounding worn out. The older cousin and her partner are in financial trouble, max cards, late car payments, and their wellness retreat side gig that's mostly Instagram posts. Then she dropped the bomb. The older cousin had been running paid retreats at the cabin once a month, keeping the cash and calling it family use. The other cousin knew and kept quiet. Grandparents had given them access through the scheduling, thinking it was just personal. I should have pieced it together sooner. Months ago, I stopped by on a Tuesday to drop off a new dock ladder and saw a small group on the porch with journals and tea. They said they were there early for a weekend thing. I figured it was friends and left it at that. My grandparents were upset and said the cousins would keep pushing. They waited outside my building one evening and gave a speech about family and legacy, saying I can't hoard something meant for everyone. Then they switched to asking me to help with the kids' college since I can afford it. I said I knew about the retreats and the cabins off limits without my okay. Lots of denials, tears, and calling me selfish. I went inside, then added a heavy chain and lock to the gate and changed the door codes. Only my partner and I have keys now. Update 2.5 weeks later, my grandparents asked to hand off managing the cabin schedule because the cousins kept bugging them. I took it over. Installed cameras, no trespassing signs, and a cover on the main water valve. Hired a local guy, a retired cop who checks on his parents nearby to do weekly walkthroughs and monitor the cameras. He texts updates sometimes, like if everything's secure or if there's storm damage. Both partners called my office. One begged at first, then threatened. He admitted the retreats said I was killing their business and if the gate wasn't locked, he'd have torn it down. The other just asked if I'd rethink it for holidays. I said no to both and don't call again. We started getting group texts about Thanksgiving plans, usually about who brings what and joking about the thermostat. It turned into talk of renting an airbnb to mimic the cabin. Grandpa said if everyone chips in up front, he'd book a mountain spot, otherwise it's at their townhouse. Nobody followed through, so we're keeping it simple at the townhouse this year. Big update 1.5 months later, Thanksgiving went off without much drama at the townhouse, but the Friday after, the partners broke into the cabin. They used a grinder to cut the gate chain, scratched up the post, tried to force the front lock, ruined the hardware, then pried open the back utility door. They also busted the barn padlock, probably after the kayaks or ATV. The caretaker got alerts from the cameras, checked the feed, and called the sheriff. Deputies showed up while they were still there. The "we're family" excuse didn't hold up, especially with their earlier threats about teaching me a lesson. They got arrested for breaking in, damaging property, and making threats. We were heading back from my partner's parents when my phone blew up with calls from the caretaker, grandparents, and sheriff. I called back, confirmed it wasn't a mix-up, and said I'd talk to a lawyer and press charges. Started compiling screenshots and evidence, including stuff on the retreats. Update 5 days later, a courier dropped off a $5,000 cashier's check at my office, plus a letter from both partners. It was straightforward. They admitted the break-in, promised to stay away unless invited, and asked me to drop charges to save their jobs. My lawyer suggested a settlement with all 4 cousins and partners, covers restitution, no contact, and no trespassing. He said suing might feel right but could drag on for years and cost more than it's worth. The caretaker's repair quote came in at just under $4,000, new front door and frame, hardware, gate fix, locks, and a beefed-up barn latch. My lawyer contacted the prosecutor about dropping charges if they pay up and stick to the deal. Told me to keep no contact and let the docs handle it. Nothing's locked in yet, it depends on their records and if they follow through. Final update 1 week later, they signed the agreement, pays for repairs, my lawyer fees, no contact, and no trespass rules. They sent another check to cover the rest. I wasn't there, my lawyer said it was tense, short talk, eyes averted, one partner pushing the cousins to sign or he'd cut his own deal. The prosecutors got my stance, if they stick to it and pay, I won't fight dismissal. If they try anything else, no more talks. Afterward, I went to the cabin by myself. The new door fit solid, gate chain was fresh. Inside smelled clean from the caretaker's wipe down. Made some coffee, sat out back watching birds on the water. Felt like things were settling. Nana called later asking if it was really done. I said yeah, mostly. She mentioned Grandpa's got some small fixes planned for winter like tightening steps or oiling hinges. Asked if they can still use it sometimes. I said sure, that's the point. It's not some big win or total disaster, just the end of dealing with their mess. The cabin's secure, boundaries are set in writing, grandparents get their time there, my partner and I get peace. The cousins and partners have to live with what they did. For me, a good lock and the lake view are plenty.